Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Julia Bryan, and I'm the chair of Democrats Abroad. I'm joined by Amanda Mohar, who's our comms director, and Alex Montgomery, who's our global vice chair. As many of you know, Democrats Abroad will run a global presidential primary next year. Democrats outside the US will have a chance to vote at over 100 voting centers worldwide, and through remote voting too. So wherever you are, you'll be able to join in and cast your vote for the Democratic presidential candidate of your choice. To make sure voters abroad have the chance to get to know the Democratic presidential candidates, we've reached out to every campaign team, asking them to join Democrats Abroad in a global town hall so that you can hear from the candidates directly. This also gives the candidates the chance to learn more about the issues that matter most to you and to the millions of Americans living outside the US. Today, unfortunately, the senator will not have time to take questions from the floor, but we'll be sure to share all of the questions and responses that you post in the chat box, and we'll send them to the senator's campaign team after the call. So really feel free to post messages there. And now just a little bit about the senator, who I know we all know well. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, and the senator attended Brooklyn College and then the University of Chicago. His political life really began at the University of Chicago, where he was a leader in the fight against discrimination in housing and education. In 1981, he was elected mayor of Burlington, which is the state's largest city, by 10 votes, and was subsequently re-elected 3 times. The senator still lives in Burlington, Vermont with his wife, Jane, when he's not in Washington, D.C. Senator Bernie Sanders has served in Congress since 1991, when he was elected as Vermont's at-large congressional representative. In 2007, he was elected to the US Senate, where he's now serving his 3rd term. He first ran for president in 2016, winning around 43% of pledged Democratic delegates. He's running again this time, and we're looking forward to hearing from him today as he tells us a little bit about himself and answers our questions. Senator Sanders, are you ready to take it away?
I sure am. And Julia, let me thank you and Democrats Abroad for organizing this meeting and for all the great work you are doing. I am running for President of the United States, not only to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of our country, somebody who is a liar running a corrupt administration, but I am running because we need a political revolution in this country, which ends the drift toward oligarchy, which I fear very much. Right now, what I see is a nation in which a handful of billionaires increasingly control the economic and political life of this country, massive levels of income and wealth inequality, only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, an education system which is in crisis, and the need to lead the world in climate change. So a whole lot of issues out there. But I think it's time for profound change in this country. We're building a grassroots movement to do that, and we look forward to the support of Democrats Abroad.
Well, thank you. Our first question is on a topic that we all care very deeply about. Alex, would you like to ask it?
Sure. Thank you, Senator Sanders, for being with us. This question comes from both our Hispanic caucus and the Progressive caucus. The climate crisis is a significant contributing factor to many conflicts and refugee situations around the globe, putting Americans abroad and all global citizens at risk due to political insecurity. How will you ensure that the US will reduce greenhouse gas emissions below Paris Accord targets and lead the global efforts to avoid catastrophic climate breakdown and the global insecurity it would cause?
Alex, thank you very much for that question. I don't know that there's any question out there that is more important. Tragically, we have a president who thinks that climate change is a hoax. Climate change is not a hoax. It is an existential threat to the United States and to the entire planet. And we have a moral responsibility to make sure that the planet we leave our children and grandchildren is one that is healthy and is habitable. And based on that, I am proud to tell you that our campaign has brought forth the boldest, most comprehensive climate change plan ever brought forth, not only by any presidential candidate, but I think by any federal candidate for office, because we listen to the scientists. And what the scientists are telling us is we have a very, very short period of time to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. My administration will take on the greed and irresponsibility of the fossil fuel industry. We will tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of our planet. And that is why our proposal, working with people like Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is based on the Green New Deal, which is a complete transformation of our energy system, which creates up to 20 million new jobs. And also, for Democrats abroad, all of you know that this is not an issue that can be solved by the United States of America alone. And as President of the United States, I will lead the global effort, not deny the reality of climate change, but work with countries all over the world, provide the financial support that some of the developing countries need in order to transform our global energy system. Right now, we are spending as a planet about $1.8 trillion a year on the military. My hope is that maybe, just maybe, under good presidential leadership from the United States, the world will understand that instead of spending 1.8 trillion on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should use those resources to fight our common enemy, which is climate change.
Thank you so much for that answer. We really appreciate it. Amanda, do you want to take the next question?
Sure. Hi, Senator Sanders. This is a question that has concerned many of our members, and it's on the subject of immigration. Executive orders such as the one exploiting the term public charge demonstrate that our current immigration system was founded in a shameful era of discrimination and bigotry, and that family members of Americans abroad are allowed entry to the US through a patchwork of fragile band-aids and weakly defended interpretations. Would you restore the principle of family reunification? How would your plan for immigration improve the situation for spouses, partners, and relatives of Americans living abroad, like us, who wish to return with our families?
Well, Amanda, the answer is yes, I certainly will. But it is not just that our immigration system today is a patchwork of policies. We have to acknowledge that we have a president who is a racist and who is a xenophobe. That's just a simple fact. Who is demonizing undocumented people in this country. So yes, obviously I believe in family unification. Obviously I believe we do not separate families. Obviously I believe that we need to move to comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship, by the way, for the 11 million undocumented in this country. And we have to make sure, and I will do this on day one, a lot of the terrible things in terms of immigration that Trump has done, he has done through executive order. And what he has done, which is based on racism and family division, I will undo on day one, including making sure that the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program get their legal status restored. Also, I know that whether you're living abroad or whether you're living in the United States right now, we are humiliated by the type of policies that exist at the border, where babies are snatched from the arms of their mothers, where children are thrown into cages. I will end that policy. We will have a humane policy at the border, comprehensive immigration reform, and strongly support family unification.
Thank you so much for your really thoughtful answer. Here's a question that's top of the mind for many of the listeners on the call today. It's something that our taxation task force drafted. And basically the question is, regulatory guidance from the US Treasury Department could alleviate the harms of FATCA, which is suffered by thousands of Americans who are living and working abroad. Will you commit to direct the Treasury Department to study and then implement new guidance that provides relief to ordinary Americans living abroad who are demonstrably not evading taxes?
Absolutely. I know, and I've heard from many Americans living abroad, that this is a serious problem. Look, I'm not going to hide from you the fact that I believe in progressive taxation. I think we've got to end the ability of large corporations and the wealthy to stash their monies in tax havens like the Cayman Islands, or Luxembourg, and that I'm going to end. But on the other hand, where you have hardworking Americans who do not try to evade their taxes, who are responsible American citizens, I don't want to see them double taxed. I don't want to see them have to go through a bureaucratic maze in order to obey the law. So to answer your question, absolutely, we will study it and we will make the necessary reforms to make sure that people simply pay their fair share of taxes and nothing more.
Great. Amanda, do you want to take the second part of that question?
Yeah, thank you. That's really good to hear, Senator Sanders. A follow-up question. Most Americans living abroad think that the time has come for residency-based taxation, the principle guiding all other countries' tax systems and a fix for numerous unjust burdens on Americans living and working abroad. There are bipartisan, revenue-neutral proposals to implement residency-based taxation that include robust provisions to protect the law from abuse of tax evaders. All we need is a member of leadership to get this done. Will you be that leader?
I think I will be that leader, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I have heard from, as I said before, many Americans abroad. We are one of, I believe, very few countries in the world that do not work under that principle. So this is something that I think we can take a hard look at and implement.
Thanks so much. Alex?
Sure, we'll shift focus a little bit. In a 2019 survey of Americans living abroad, Democrats abroad found that 2.2% cited that their reason for living abroad was affordable health care. These numbers include healthcare refugees who cannot afford to return to live in the US due to the high cost of healthcare and the threat of bankruptcy due to illness. Under your healthcare plan, will Americans currently abroad at all income levels and states of health be able to return to the US return to live in the US and receive quality, affordable, accessible healthcare for their families at reasonable cost and without the threat of bankruptcy?
Well, the very short answer is absolutely. As I hope many of you know, I am working and leading the effort. My legislation in the Senate, co-sponsored by, I think, 14 other senators, it's called Medicare for All. It would end the international embarrassment of the United States of America being the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare to all people as a human right. Right now, we have a healthcare system whose function is not to provide good quality healthcare to all. It is to make huge profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies, and that's exactly what's happening. Last year, those guys made $100 billion in profit. $100 billion in profit. And many of you abroad know that the prices you pay for prescription drugs are a fraction of what it costs in the United States. Just a couple of months ago, I went to Canada, to buy insulin for people who are suffering from diabetes. Went with a busload of folks. We bought insulin in Windsor, Ontario for 1/10 the price. 1/10 the price of what is charged in the United States of America. So let me be very clear. This is what we're going to do. We are going to pass a Medicare for All single-payer program, which will guarantee healthcare to every man, woman, and child. There will be no longer any premiums, no co-payments, no deductibles, no out-of-pocket expenses. The vast majority of the American people, except the very, very wealthy, will pay less for their healthcare than they're currently paying. And our proposal will include dental care, hearing aids, eyeglasses, and home health care. So this is comprehensive health care, freedom of choice regarding the doctor you want, and of course, our brothers and sisters from abroad, when they return to the United States, will be eligible for the same benefits than anybody living in the United States. But the time is long overdue for us to take on the greed and the corruption of the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry and guarantee health care to all people as a human right. And this is an issue I've been working on my entire adult life, something I feel passionate about, and as President of the United States, something that we will implement.
Well, thank you so much for that answer. And it's something that we care about as well. And in fact, we've been gathering stories of healthcare around the world and would love to share with you and other campaigns these stories, because we think we can help tell that story for everyone working on this.
Well, Julia, thank you. And you mentioned, and when you talk about the absurdity and the cruelty of our current system, it is not just that 87 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured, while we spend twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other nation. It's that some 500,000 families go bankrupt because of medically related bills. Can you believe that? That somebody comes down with a serious illness, ends up in the hospital, and not only do they have to worry about their illness, they have to worry about whether their family is going to be financially solvent. That is disgusting. I mean, it really is. It is vulgar, and we're going to end that.
Thank you so much. So our next question is also something that we as Americans abroad really care about as well, and it's something that all Americans, I believe, are really thinking about a lot, especially as we come up to the election. It's about voter protection. You know, while federal legislation provides some protection for our votes abroad, this legislation just does not go far enough to counter the challenges that states and recently the Trump administration have set up to limit voting from abroad. Right now, 67% of ballots from abroad are returned by mail, largely due to state requirements. Yet postal delivery of ballots is really fraught with problems. We have some of the countries we vote from, they don't even have a postal system. During each election, thousands of ballots just do not arrive on time to be counted. How would you help protect the rights of Americans abroad to vote while helping states ensure that ballots are returned safely?
Well, as you know, and it is especially magnified under the Trump administration, I don't want to get people abroad very nervous, but we are struggling hard to maintain American democracy right now. I mean, that's the simple truth. So I believe, and I know all of you believe, in the principle of one person, one vote. I didn't used to think that this was a controversial idea, but we have an administration which looks very positively abroad to authoritarian governments, not to traditional democratic allies. So what I happen to believe is that we will do everything humanly impossible to improve our democracy, make it easier for people to vote. And right now, that means certainly for people abroad, we want to work with you to make sure that your vote is counted. I mean, that is your right as an American citizen. That is the most important right you have. You don't want to be disenfranchised. So we will work in any and every way using new technology with all of the safeguards that we can establish to make sure that your voice is heard, your vote is counted. But I want you to know, this is not just an issue for Americans abroad. Right now, you have Republican governor after Republican governor trying to suppress the vote, trying to make it harder for poor people, people of color, young people to participate in the political process. So we will do everything that we can, by the way, not only in terms of ending voter suppression, but also another issue, which is campaign finance reform. And that is, we're going to end a situation where billionaires can spend hundreds of millions of dollars to elect the candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. There is an enormous amount of work to do to increase voter turnout in our country, to create the kind of vibrant democracy that every America should want and be proud of, and to make sure that every vote is counted, whether you're in London, whether you're in Paris, whether you're in Morocco, wherever you may be. And I pledge to you that we will do that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We are working hard on this subject too. We are working with Fair Fight and the DNC's voter protection team. And it's just great to know that there's a big team out there working on this problem. So thanks so much. You know, we also we want to thank you so much just for joining us today and having this conversation with us. We really appreciate you taking the time to join our call and to dig into a few of the questions that we deeply care about. Before we sign off, I just want to remind everyone on the call that the Senator's petition is on the Democrats Abroad website at democratsabroad.org/Sanders. That's democratsabroad.org/Sanders. Senator, would you like to add a last word before you sign off?
Sure. Well, Julia, thank you and Democrats Abroad for organizing this event. And thank you for all that you are doing in so many respects. I don't have to tell anybody that we are living in a dangerous and unprecedented moment in American history. That's simply the truth. And as I think, as we have discussed, we're not only fighting for healthcare for all, we're not only fighting to save the planet for our kids and our grandchildren. We're not only fighting for comprehensive immigration reform, criminal justice reform, and a fair and progressive taxation system. We are fighting to maintain American democracy. That's what we're fighting for. So what our campaign is about is kind of unprecedented, and that is we're reaching out to many, many millions of people in this country, working people, young people, people who have given up on the political process, to bring them together around an agenda that works for all of us, not just the 1%, to remind Americans that people, brave Americans, have fought and died to protect American democracy, and that now is the moment that we come together to tell Trump and the oligarchs that they are not going to win this struggle, that democracy is going to prevail in the United States, and that we're going to have an economic system and a government that works for all. So look forward to the support of many of our friends abroad, and thank you all very much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Senator. We're fighting with you, and we appreciate your time today. And thanks everyone who joined us today. We're looking forward to seeing you in future candidate calls and at our primary next spring. Can everyone just join? We just join and say thank you, Senator, and a big virtual round of applause to you. Amanda, would you like to have the last word?
Sure, thanks, Julia. I hope that you all enjoyed our global town hall with the Senator as much as I did, and your support goes a long way in these efforts. So please visit democratsabroad.org/donate so that we can continue to bring more events like these to Americans like you around the world. We'd also love to have your support as a volunteer. Next year, it's going to be all hands on deck, and you can sign up at democratsabroad.org/volunteer to get involved. New first-time volunteers are very welcome. With that, we're going to be ending the call. Thanks again to Senator Sanders and to all of you for joining our global town hall.
Ciao, everyone.